Hellraiser Judgment is the 10th film in the franchise, and with this entry we're back to a police investigation narrative. I could be wrong, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that the makers of Judgment have maybe, perhaps, potentially encountered David Fincher's Seven. This is the last Hellraiser before the 2022 reboot, so let's get it out of the way and finally be rid of these terrible direct-to-video sequels. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter and I'm joined as always by Tim.
Howdy.
Of course, we've been working through the Hellraiser franchise now. I think we started this, believe it or not, in October 2017. No, that's not right. It was 2018, not 2017. 2018. I believe that's when we started the Hellraiser franchise. So this has been a 4-year journey through the 10 entries. I mean, to be fair, the reason why it's been 4 years is because you were off for like 9 months
Sure.
with paternity leave, so that did extend it a little bit. But we have been working through them. The great first film, the decent second film. I will stick up for the not good necessarily, but a fun B movie of a third movie.
Yeah,
and then. It starts to go off the rails quite a bit at that point. I know you're a bit more defensive of 4 than most, but then once
it's not a good movie by any means, but I think it still retains some of that fun B movie charm that you want in that later day sequel. But yeah, I'm not gonna say it's good by any stretch.
Yeah, opinions vary, but then you get to 5 and it's like, okay, now you're just in you're in. I don't know, our own version of Vietnam, I think. This is just how I describe this franchise. It has been misery after misery. So this is a horror movie podcast, in case I don't think I said that this time. We went straight into rambling about things. We're going to talk about Hellraiser Judgment, which is the 10th, and until next month, the current latest entry in the Hellraiser franchise. It came out in 2018, if you can believe that or not, which is the year we started going through the franchise. So this comes after a long line of sequels, many of which were not written as Hellraiser movies and just had Pinhead shoehorned in at some point to be Hellraiser movies. This one, I assume, was written as a Hellraiser movie, because it feels like it might have been, but I mean, if you told me it was like shifted from a different script or something, I wouldn't argue with you either.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see a lot of. I guess maybe it has influence of like the later Hellraiser sequels, but it doesn't feel very Hellraiser-y to me in terms of like the first movie.
Oh no, I completely agree. That's the weird thing about it. It feels like it's taken the lessons from the later sequels, which were all technically not Hellraiser movies until they shoved Pinhead in them. So all the bad cop stuff that we got from particularly 5, 6, and 7, there's a bit of that in this one. So there's no Doug Bradley as Pinhead again. He was offered the role. I read on Wikipedia that he turned it down because they wouldn't let him read the script without signing an NDA. And he refused to do that. So
good for you, Doug.
I feel like reading a script for a movie that you might be in production or might be in line to be involved with, I feel like there's naturally always an NDA with that because they don't want spoilers to leak. So on the one hand, like I'm like, yeah, screw this stupid movie. I guess the point here maybe is that he wanted to read the script to see if it was good before he agreed, and they wouldn't let him do that. I think really is what happened there. Because I feel like the actors aren't supposed to leak details of scripts and things that they've been working on. So anyway, the setup for this one is it's obviously it's got a pretty batshit ending, which we'll obviously talk about in spoilers. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. For those of you who care about spoilers for the 10th Hellraiser movie. It's got this weird kind of... I mean, the title Judgment, I'll give it this. The title actually is more relevant to the plot on this occasion because there is kind of like a judge and jury and kind of like... there's a trial of sorts that happens in the premise, which is this house that people are drawn to. in which this other like character from hell or somewhere else is sort of carrying this out, and Pinhead's just kind of around doing stuff, and we kind of see this process at the start of the movie. We see it sort of then factor into the main plot as the movie goes on, but the actual main plot that we're following with the main characters is that there's a serial killer going around called the Preceptor, which is a terrible name. Did you roll your eyes when you heard this name? Because I was like, wait, oh, come on, this is pathetic. You can't even get a good serial killer name in your low budget crappy movie.
I mean, everything about this feels like it's trying so hard to like rip off Seven, even though this came out in like 2018.
There's a lot of like Seven
like,
Deadly Sin kind of parallels. Yeah, they never use that phrase. They talk about like the sins of the Bible or something. You know, but they never. But that's basically what it is.
So like everything just feels like it's very derivative and taken from other like really bad like, you know, cop kind of thriller things, or like, you know, maybe horror cop dramas or whatever. And then but it really just feels so cookie cutter, like they just take, you know, very easy ideas and then just like replace names and stuff. Like, yeah, in that case, like, you know, it seems like that would be something that like a crappy like daytime TV show like would name their serial killer, like the dumbest like first idea name that they can think of.
The other thing I'd say about this as well is that it's very try-hard when it comes to trying to be shocking with some of the disgusting and gory stuff that happens. We'll save it for spoilers as to what it actually is, but it just does. There's like a series of events in the first 15 minutes that left me kind of shocked, not because I was appalled by it, but because I just couldn't believe how desperate it felt to try and be shocking and like, oh, look at us, we're crazy horror movies and all this stuff. It felt really just felt just a little pathetic. So I mean, it was disgusting. There's random just nudity thrown in to try and make it kind of like risque and sexy at the same time, which, you know, just it kind of just, you imagine the mentality of the people behind it, and, you know, like, we want boobs for some reason in this scene, you know. So I mean, it's probably an obvious answer, but I mean, I always ask, so I'll ask it anyway. Tim, how did you feel about Judgment Day? I mean, Hellraiser Judgment.
No, I did not like it at all.
What?
Yeah, so I think I actually tried to watch it before, like when it first came out, because if I remember correctly, I think I heard on some podcasts or some people talking online that like people are saying like, yo, this is actually kind of interesting and it's a little better than some of the later, you know, Hellraiser sequels. So I was like kind of intrigued.
I mean, I might technically agree with that statement, but I mean, the bar is so freaking low that it's not.
Yeah, no, I mean that's very true. Especially like I feel like the last couple of ones were just like, oof, like really rough.
I will say definitively, this is better than 9. This is better than the last one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. Like I will say I don't think it's a good movie at all, but there is a degree of contemplacy. I couldn't even say that word. But
the irony of not being able to pronounce that word is wonderful.
But like, yeah, it's like there's a level in the filmmaking that it's like, okay, like at least this feels slightly more like a, you know, real film than, yeah, like the last one, which felt so low budget. And I mean, this one's low budget as well, but you know, at least you know, it is a little more like a movie or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that being said, you know, that still can't really, you know, save it in a lot of regards. I will say there is some stuff about it that I guess I find a little interesting or intriguing. I wouldn't say it's good. Like, like there's some stuff like, yeah, where they're going through kind of like, I guess the bureaucracy and like the way hell works, and stuff, where like, you know, that stuff, I guess, I don't know, part of me thinks it's like a little interesting, I suppose, but yeah, it doesn't really work in the movie. And also, that stuff is very quickly left aside to, give way to the main, like, police and detective story, which is just so goddamn boring, and it feels so repetitive and derivative. Like, at the point, it seems like this is basically, like, since 5 onward, like, these are what these movies have been, at this point, where it's always like, some like grizzled, sad detective who seems like he, has some type of secret, or something is, like, eating away at him. And then there's, these dumb weird sequences with demons and stuff. And I just find the main story to be so boring. The performances feel very lackluster. Like, the dialogue and everything just feels like, someone was just watching, like, a, cable cop show or something, and just, like, being like, oh, okay, this is how, like, a detective would talk to each other. Like, if, like, I think when you said, like, try hard earlier, that was a good description for it. Like, it feels like it is trying really hard on, at every level to, like, be, like, a serious, like, thought-provoking drama and stuff, when it just, it really isn't.
Yeah, it's trying really hard without any of the talent to actually make, or understand why any of it works in other movies. So it's just this pale imitation of lots of other things. The whole, like, cop thing where, like, your lead cop's maybe got a darker side to him, and he's having these dreams of Cenobites and, like, these, like, weird hallucination moments. It's very 5 and 6. It's what my mind immediately went to when that stuff started happening. What I will say about it, my one positive, is that it is, like the last one, pretty sharp. It's 80 minutes, and then once you take off the credits, you're basically done at 75 minutes in, because there's 5 minutes of credits at the end. So it's like, all right, done, dusted. All right, onto things. Now, admittedly, I do feel like there's a lot of plot elements in it that are rushed. Not that I'm saying I want a longer version of this movie, but
for sure.
I can critique that, but be thankful that at its current quality, it's nice and short. So
exactly.
I will take some solace in that. I mean, the guy who plays Pinhead here, he's not Doug Bradley, but he's a little better than the last guy.
Yeah, I suppose.
At the very least, I think his head's, like, the right shape, or closer to the right shape.
Sure, yeah.
The last guy had this really weird, like, sort of flat head that just looked weird as Pinhead. So, as for anything else, like, the characters are all very undercooked. There's, like, a sort of 3-way dynamic where the 2 cops that are partners are actually brothers, but then this woman comes in to be the third partner to help catch the serial killer, because the serial killer is, like, killing too many people. Like, they have to put everyone on this to solve the case, which means one more person in this crappy little office. And all of that stuff just kind of feels like it's killing time before the movie gets to the stuff that it wants to get to, with the reveals and with what's really going on and all the other stuff. There's not really much momentum or flow to the movie. It kind of feels like the opening 15 minutes are kind of its own little thing, and then we go to the serial killer plot, and then we kind of kill time with that, and then there's a section in the middle where we go back to the house that feels, again, what the movie wants to do, and then the last, like, 15 minutes, which is, okay, here's what the movie's actually wanting to do and say, and that's it. Then everything else with the cops and investigating the crimes in between just feels like they're going through the motions, like they're not really that interested in doing any of it, which is why it's so quick and easy. And everything that leads to that final confrontation is basically just, oh, like, we found something on a GPS on a phone and it leads us to here, and everything's just going to immediately, like, come out, and it doesn't feel like it's earned. It doesn't feel like we've been building up to it. It doesn't feel this big crescendo of a moment. It just feels like blah, that's it. Now we're done.
Yeah, the reveal of who the killer is, like, might have been one of the most obvious like reveals in movies in a long time.
Yeah. There's not a lot of positive things to say. I mean,
no.
you see a few other Cenobites. One of them's like the Nemesis looking one that's been there before. There's like sort of twin lady Cenobites that have got like their face kind of stapled in the middle, if that makes sense, or stitched in the middle, perhaps is a better way of putting it. That's basically it. There's a couple of other character or monstrous characters that aren't Cenobites that we'll get into in spoilers, which, you know, they just feel like something they've pulled out of Silent Hill or something like that. We'll talk
Feels
about
very Silent Hill-y, yeah.
What their role is and what their purpose is. Is there anything else I can say without spoilers? Is there anything else I want to say before we start working through it? Because I don't know if there is.
No, I mean, I agree with you. It is very lackluster. Yeah, I don't think it looks well. It doesn't, you know, again, sorry, but I don't really think the performances are like that great from anyone.
No,
really.
No.
I don't, there's maybe like one or there's maybe like one I guess kill that I thought was like okay, but I don't know. Everything is a very low bar. Like really the only positive I can say is that like it's like, well, I mean, I guess it's better than the last one, or well, I definitely would say it's better than the last one, probably the one before that, like, but again, those are such low bars that it's like, all right, well, I mean, it's hard to be as bad as some of these sequels have been.
Yeah, I might even say it's better than 5 and 6, and the only reason why I would say that is because at least the last 10 minutes of this, as much as I don't think it's good, it's stupid, at least it's swinging for some crazy idea that they've come up with.
For sure, yeah.
You know, so there's at least something interesting to talk about with the ending, as opposed to those which were just kind of like, oh, it ends with them getting the main character and that's it, it's over. You know, like that was basically the gist of the end of those movies. So we should mention there is actually some horror royalty in this movie.
Oh.
Yes. Did you not notice the name during the opening titles? Hella Langenkamp from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, I don't even think I realized that.
Yeah, well, obviously she's a lot older now than probably the last time you've seen her, but she was the landlady when they're going to like check like the pervert's apartment. She was the landlady.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Jeez, I didn't even recognize her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think I've seen her in anything since New Nightmares, and that was 1994. So.
Yeah. Was she in one of these? Was she in another one of these sequels?
No, you're thinking of the one. You're thinking of Ashley Lawrence, who was in the original Hellraiser. She was in number 6.
Yeah. Okay.
Which was also in 2 as well, but that was more of a proper appearance.
Okay. Yeah. I can't really think of anything else I would have seen her in other than like some Nightmare stuff.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Hella Langenkamp in anything but Nightmare on Elm Street 1, 3, and 7, and now this, I guess.
Interesting.
At least if I have, I don't remember her being in anything else. But I'm sure she did other stuff. I'm sure she was a working actor. I'm sure she did other things, but I don't think I've ever seen her in anything else. So, I don't know. But I thought that was worth mentioning. We had some Elm Street royalty in this. Which I just before we go on, I didn't know about this roughly at the time, but I was reading just as because I was looking up the Wikipedia page and I was just like seeing the thing about Doug Bradley and turning down the role. I was reminded that for a while, because of Freddy vs. Jason, Dimension, who had the rights to both like Hellraiser and Halloween, were trying to like get a Michael and Pinhead movie going.
That does sound familiar. Like I remember those kind of like early internet days. I feel like I'd always see like rumors about that kind of stuff.
Well, it was in the works before Freddy vs. Jason, and apparently Dimension decided against it because they assumed Freddy vs. Jason was going to bomb, and then it didn't. It actually did quite well for its budget, and they went, "Oh shit, maybe we should do this." And I don't know how true this next part is that I read, because this sounds a bit far-fetched given like his attitude. But apparently there was even talk of having Carpenter direct it, which I will take that with a grain of salt and all that, because I don't really believe that. But so there was a whole idea, but apparently Clive Barker didn't think it was a good idea, and eventually the thing that killed it.
Gee, I wonder why.
The thing that killed it was Mustafa Akkad, who was the producer and the owner of Halloween, said no. And part of the reason why he said no was because the online reaction to rumors of this weren't actually that positive. Like most fans were like, these two don't really fit together. Apparently the plot was this is what they were going to do with the plot. According to Wikipedia, the plot was going to be that a young Michael Myers opened the lament configuration.
No, I hate it already.
And that's how what's the demon that they said in 6 like was involved with him? Sam Hain?
Yeah, in Halloween 6?
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Hellraiser 6. I was like, I have no idea.
Halloween 6, right? So Sam Hain got into him and possessed him through the lament configuration when he opened it, and that's what made him Michael Myers, the shape. Yeah, I would have hated that. I mean, at least that part. Like, maybe when you've got Michael versus Pinhead later on, maybe there'll be some fun to be had, but I would have hated that retcon of the backstory.
Yeah, if it's like... You know, if it's kind of like an out of continuity, cheesy thing, like maybe you could have some fun with it. But yeah, if it's something that's supposed to be like in the actual backstory or whatever, that's awful. That sucks.
Yeah, I think what you just do is, maybe you're just stealing from Freddy vs. Jason a little bit here, but maybe you just have someone that Michael's after use the box. And then it's like they have to fight over the person. Like, you're like, this is my victim. No, it's my victim.
That seems, the right way to go.
Yeah. And honestly, there's probably more interesting pairings. Like, honestly, Pinhead and Freddy's probably a better pairing because they're both kind of supernatural. One comes from hell, one's in dreams. You know, there's maybe some interesting dynamics that play there.
Yeah, for sure. I can't. I feel like I can't imagine the even though some of the later Halloween movies kind of go off into some crazy places, it still feels like somewhat of a grounded horror series. I think introducing like these cosmic like demon torture beings just really takes away from kind of the simplicity of Michael Myers. For sure.
And I've said this before, like I hate Halloween 6. I don't like Halloween 5. Like there's some bad Halloween movies. I think Halloween 6 is better than every Hellraiser movie after number 4.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that at all.
I've said this before, but the bar of the bad Halloween sequels like feels like in this really comfortable place versus Hellraiser, where you're just in the pits of some of the worst, most boring shit you've ever waded through.
Well, that's the problem with these sequels, is they're so boring and dour, and like they all just look like shit, like that they're not fun to watch. Like the Halloween I think a lot of the later Halloween sequels are pretty bad, but at the same time, at least they look like actual movies. Like most of them are released in theaters, most of them are written as Halloween movies, and then even when they're cheesy and bad, there's like fun stuff to get some joy out of, versus this where there's just nothing. I
think one of the things you said there is quite poignant, is that every Halloween movie was made for a theater release. Every single one. Hellraiser after the 4th one, in fact maybe even after the 3rd one, I don't know when, maybe the 4th was direct to video as well, but it was just direct to video, like, oh, we can slap a title on it and sell it, some unsuspecting people will buy it and we'll trick them for the money.
Yeah, it's so, I don't know, it's so strange to me that it's like, is it that profitable to make these really bad sequels versus like, let's actually try making something good and like releasing it in theaters and stuff? Like, I don't know.
I mean, versus that, if it's successful, I would say the successful good movie is obviously much better. But I think for the amount of money they spend on these movies, like what they make from just people who will buy it because it says Hellraiser is probably profitable enough, which is why they do it.
That's true. And also the want to keep the license and all that crap.
Yeah, keeping the license. I also suspect there might be some sort of like tax write-off like thing they're doing as well. Sure. Like some sort of like, if it doesn't make X amount of money, they get like X amount back in taxes or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I suspect foul play is what I'm saying. So
I'm still mad that they canceled the Hell Girl movie with Michael Keaton and Brendan Fraser.
Wait, what's this? What are you referencing?
I was just making a Batgirl joke because you talk about tax write-offs and like people say like that was canceled because of.
I see. Yeah, and then the other thing I noticed here is that apparently after this all fell through, the Halloween crossover, Dimension went, hey, or Lionsgate maybe, hey, we have both Hellraiser and Candyman, and then Clive Barker, who of course created both of those things, went, and let's not do that. And, okay, all right, we won't do it.
Yeah.
So
Still not a good idea, but I don't know, probably better than Halloween. I feel like. I mean,
they're both kind of like mythical characters who come in. Yeah, you know. So, but maybe don't cross over everything. That's okay if you don't, is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to literally not have every IP that you love all hang out together in like one big giant movie.
Yeah, like honestly, if I'm fighting for one, I will say give me Ash versus Jason, because that's fun because it's a hero character who fights deadites taking on a slasher villain. I think, and Jason's the one you can have some silly fun with. I wouldn't do it with Michael because Michael's too serious. Like, but Jason's the silly one, so you can do it with Jason.
Yeah, no, that would work. You know, I think they kicked around the idea before of like Leprechaun versus Wishmaster, which I actually think would be pretty fun.
I bet no one cares about those two franchises, so it's all right. Go on, knock yourself out.
Just me, but yeah, I'd be there in at the premiere.
I just want Wishmaster to say "As you wish" to Leprechaun. Yes. All right, let's get into spoilers.
Maybe I mean, maybe not the best fit, but you know, Ash versus Texas Chainsaw Massacre just to get some you know, dueling chainsaws in there.
It really bothers me you said Ash versus Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not Ash versus Leatherface, like a human being. Like, what the hell?
Well, I want him fighting the whole family. That's...
Oh, okay, all right. He's fighting the existential idea of a massacre.
Yeah, by committing a massacre. But then you could get like Deadite Leatherface, which could be cool.
Yeah, Leatherface is going to look at that arm that's just got a chainsaw attachment and go, oh, he's a cut out the middleman there. The middleman being his hand. I like the sounds of that. Leatherface is going to turn around, chainsaw off his own hand just to even the playing field because he wants to stick it on his stump. So much hope. All right, can you tell that we have more interesting things to talk about than Hellraiser Judgment? That said, though, we're in spoilers now, and there is at least some wacky stuff to talk about at the start of the movie. The movie starts...
yeah, I mean, we do have to, you know, so we are going to have to pass judgment on this movie, which means, you know, we're going to do it the same way we do it with every review, where we, you know, take all of its sins, and then have some guy come out and eat them and then vomit them on a bunch of naked ladies who will tell you if we like the movie or not.
Tim, you're skipping ahead from what I even want to start with. Do you not remember the minute-long conversation between Pinhead and like this demon lawyer, whoever he is?
Yeah,
and they're talking about how the technology is advanced, so now people's desires are getting darker because they can just fulfill their desires on the internet. Were you expecting this to start with Pinhead going, damn Pornhub's taking away a lot of my business?
It's a very good point. Yeah, I wasn't expecting the 10th Hellraiser movie to be so poignant. I was quite shocked. It's like, oh wow, maybe technology really is bad.
Yeah, but so yeah, basically they send a letter. That's right. They send a letter to some guy who turns out to be like a pedophile / child murderer. Not Freddy Krueger, just in case you were going to jump to the conclusion there. Sending a letter, just saying that it's a vague question saying, we know what your desires are, come to this house. So he goes to this house, and he sits down, and he gets like strapped to this chair, and this demon lawyer dude, who's just a guy with scars all over his face really, and sunglasses on. But he's basically saying, hey, if you're honest about what you've done wrong in the past, you know, you'll be rewarded. So he's like, oh yeah, so I kidnapped this little girl, blah, blah, blah. And he sort of confesses all this stuff. And then to sort of like give the painful detail of what you just jokingly went through, he's written all what this guy said down on paper and or typed it on the paper. And this like fat guy comes in, he pours some gooey like clear liquid and he says it's the tears of children onto the paper. And then starts shoving the paper in his mouth, and there's so many close-ups of his mouth chewing paper, and like this, like, you know, what's supposedly like tears and saliva, like just sort of bubbling out of his mouth, and he's like chomping. It is disgusting. I felt sick looking at this and hearing this.
Yeah, I was kind of hungry.
Of course you were. Of course you were. And then he then vomits into like a container that's over like a sink or something over the side of the room, which then all the vomit, the gooey vomit that he's like brought up, goes through like a tube system into another room where three. Everything except panties are naked, right? So it's just three naked women effectively on their knees. They're all missing like patches of skin on their face, but they're all topless. They're sitting in front of basically like a urinal, like not like a single urinal, but like the one long metal urinal that you get on some toilets. Yeah. And that
like a trow.
Yes, like yes. So what you say when you go to the bathroom? I'm going to use the trow. But this vomit fills up this, and I was like, oh, please don't let them eat it. Luckily they don't eat it, but they just they all put their hands, they all submerge their hands in the vomit, and then turn to the demon lawyer dude and go, guilty. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? This is just random shit for the sake of random shit. What's going on here? And every so often it just cuts to Pinhead, who's in a different room, just sitting on like a throne, just being like, yes, I will judge thee. I will judge. For I am Pinhead. I have all the pins. You have no pins. I have all the pins.
Yeah, he needs his like own like Judge Judy courtroom show.
No, Gary Busey, pet judge.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know the latest references.
I'm not even done with the weird stuff though. So they take him and strap him to a table in another room, and
not like the surgeon comes out.
Well, no, before that we have the naked fat woman. Not the same naked woman as before. Yeah. There's fat naked women who come out and bite off his clothes with their teeth. So he's lying there butt-ass naked. And then you get, it's this very like Silent Hill or like late Resident Evil style like surgeon who comes, well, not a surgeon, I think that's, the surgeon's the one who pops out of his back. More than that in a second. we have this, I don't know what they call him, but it's like a big guy with a big hunchback, and he's kind of like, he's got a lot of, everything's fake. It's all like a big fake head and like, prosthetics and whatever, and he's sort of lunging around the room kind of thing, and then when he stops at the edge of the table and turns round, this very athletic sort of woman who's in like a black latex catsuit and a gas mask comes out and has two big circular blades in her hands, and then she finally like slices and dices and kills the guy. Not before that, after that rather, she then, once he's dead, peels off his skin from the head down until it's just this, big, like, soaking wet, flappy skin, and just drops it to the floor. And then ends the craziness of the first, 10-minute section of the movie.
So, yeah, this is, like, extremely, like, batshit insane. I will say I don't mind the idea behind it. Like I think it's interesting, the idea of like, if this is hell or whatever, and like, this is how, you're judged by your sins, and it's like, since these are crazy demons, they have like a crazy trial process where, like people are like eating your confession and then like throwing it up, and then all this like crazy stuff like that. To me, like, okay, I think there is something interesting there, but then, just the way it's presented, it just feels very, like, over the top, but also, like, still kind of cheap. Like, the guy that, like, eats the confession or whatever, like, most of the people are, have some type of makeup or something. Like, that guy was just kind of just, like, a guy with, like... I don't know, he was just like a regular guy. I don't know, like, why he just looked normal.
He was fat. I mean, that's what they were going for.
It does seem like they were, I don't know, they're being like a little fat phobic or something, but like it did kind of seem to be like, this is hell, so like, yeah, look at this person, he's big. It's like, okay, like, so. But yeah, it looks very bad, like just like knockoffs of like they're trying to knock off like better things, like you're saying, like Silent Hill. Like it feels like it's very much trying to be something like that, but just not really pulling it off.
And they're doing all this, by the way, because the technology becoming, as they stated at the start, more prevalent and easier for people to fulfill their desires. No one's looking for the lament configuration. No one's opening it. So
they just have to send letters.
Yeah. So now they're sending letters and luring the worst of the worst to the house to get their pounds of flesh, as it were. So it's like, okay, so that's an interesting concept. And then obviously after this, it cuts to like the main plot, right? And I was like, wait, don't tell me that's just a plot. Luckily, it did come into it. Like eventually, one of our main characters ends up at the house, and it's kind of like, okay, it was setting it up because it's going to be relevant later. But part of me for a while thought that was just like almost like a short movie, and then it was going to be ever like mentioned or relevant again. Because that would not surprise me in one of these Hellraiser sequels to do that.
Sure, yeah.
It would not surprise me at all. But yeah, we're interested in the serial killer. We're, as victims, this woman who comes home and whoever it is jumps out at her. The cops come and find the crime scene, and she's got the killers put her a very alive dog inside her stomach, because she kept saying the dog was her baby, and so this was kind of a literal. So it's a little bit Saw as well. It's a little bit Saw.
Like she was saying, like she has these videos where she was saying like oh, I worship this dog, like it's my god or whatever. So then the thing was, he's like, oh, like it's a sin to worship anything other than God, and that's like a false idol.
Oh, for sure. No, but the stomach thing was specifically the idea that she said it was he was her baby.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the irony of the stomach. But obviously the important thing here is the introduction of the two brother cops who are partners, which is just very coincidental that they would end up being partners together.
Probably seems like not. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in HR, but it doesn't seem like a great idea. Like, seems like you'd probably be a little too close to each other.
If there were two PIs who opened a PI business together, I'd be like, okay, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
Right? But I feel like, a police force wouldn't intentionally put two brothers together in a case that, or even just as a pair of partners.
Yeah.
But, so it sets up the younger ones, like the smarter one, the older one's got a bit of a temper, and that's basically them. Cop lady shows up when at the crime scene, and she's there to like join forces with them, which sets up their whole thing. Basically, it starts to connect to the opening when they sort of suspect, like, okay, so who are the perverts and stuff who we're keeping an eye on?
First thing a cop always says, who are the perverts?
Yeah. Well, because I think it turns out all the victims like either are associated or came from the same school, so it was like, okay, what criminals are related to that school? And the pervert that we had at the start of the movie, who was, who got skinned and all the rest of it, he was like caught like staring at the girls at this posh private school or whatever it was. So they go to this guy's place, and obviously he's not there because he's already dead, as we know. But that's where they meet Heather Langenkamp. It sets them down another path to figure things out. The older cop goes back later after he has a really comical scene with his wife. Actually, there's like a really tropey, like generic scene where he goes home and the wife's pissed that he didn't come home in time for her birthday, and it's like the most just tropey, angry married couple, pissed off wife, pissed off husband sort of shit you've ever seen. Which actually, the other thing that made me laugh during this section of the film, and it's not, this is not weird to have the same type of establishing shot for the same location multiple times, because it builds familiarity with the police station in this case. It's like, okay, but every time it was the exact same shot, the exact same angle, and what really got to me was how quickly we got like 4 of them, where I swear we got an establishing shot, there was a quick scene in the police station, there was the scene of him going home and talking to his wife, which was maybe a minute long, and then we got the establishing shot of the police station again. It made me laugh because it was so quick before we got it again, which might just be indicative of it racing through the plot that it's not interested in doing, and it just wants to get to the good bit, as in their minds, which is him finding the letter that the guy got. Even though the guy never had the letter at home, he found it in the street. It just went straight there by the looks of it. But we'll ignore that. So our older cop, which I should get a name because he's the main character. Sean?
I know at least one of them was Sean. For
It's
sure.
Sean and David. I think Sean's the older one, but
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right.
But Sean goes to the place, and sure enough, he immediately gets tied up to the chair, and demon lawyers asking him questions. He's like, "When did you first hurt someone?" And he's like, "Well, there was this dog, and I kicked it, and I killed it." And it kind of references like he was in he was in the military or something, so he killed a lot of people when he was in the military, and they point out that shit, and it's what it is. Every so often it cuts to Hellraiser, it cuts to Pinhead just kind of smirking or looking bemused, or he's clearly like listening supernaturally to this interrogation that's happening elsewhere.
And then this one is like the I don't know how you describe it, but like they are like so like revolted by what he's done, is like it's throwing like the whole system in like chaos. Like
the fat guy who very much enjoyed eating the previous confession starts to choke on his confession, and he does get strapped to a table, but he's able to break free, and he steals one of the lament configurations, because there's like a whole shelf of them on the wall, and he steals one and teleports out with that, seemingly. Like that's what they say anyway.
Yeah.
So the middle portion of the movie is him having nightmares of seeing Cenobites. Once when he's having sex with his wife and he ends up freaking out and leaving the house. Once where he just kind of passes out in an alleyway and kind of imagines seeing some Cenobites again. And that's kind of it, by and large. There's not a whole lot more to it. The case is continuing, like the others are looking into it. The lady cop says she was assigned to this because the upper people were starting to suspect, or starting to worry about the older brother's behavior, and she admits this to the younger brother. Yeah. So the younger brother looks into some stuff whilst they're going to check some evidence from the autopsy of the victim at the start of the movie. And this, like, immediately, this we're going to the final now. Like, believe it or not, like, we're already like done pretty much of all the main plot of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, this whole all the stuff in hell or the house or whatever, it's so crazy, but at least it is kind of interesting. Like this whole middle part about the police and the serial killer, and then this like cop lady that they introduced, like that stuff is just so boring to me. It just feels like it's like not doing anything. It's just kind of plodding along to get to whatever the next thing is, but it's just it's weird. Like even though it's not a long movie, it felt really long like while I was watching it. But then like when you sum it up, like you can sum it up really quickly, like in like 1 or 2 minutes. Like
if you think of all the scenes where the three cops are together, there's not a lot of them. Like you could really count them. And the wife character who like she has the scene where she's mad at him for not being there for her birthday on time, which just feels like it comes out of nowhere. And then the next time you see her is when he wakes up in bed next to her and they start having sex. And then the very next time you see her is in the finale, which we're about to get to. Like we're barreling into it. So Lady Cop and older brother go to a location where they believe the original victim might have been killed, and they find this like storage locker sort of area where this killer's been clearly working from. He's got a lot of his victims' photos on the wall, and there's one that's got a curtain over it, and he pulls the curtain and it's his younger brother in bed with his wife, and the Lady Cop says holy shit, and he turns around and starts beating the shit out of her head with the gun, revealing that older cop is in fact the Perceptor killer. Which
I don't know about you, but I knew this like the instant the movie started. Like is extremely obvious to me. Like I mean, I don't know, maybe they weren't trying to go for like a big surprise or something, but it was very there's no shock or anything at all to it.
But even just the way that his brother figures it out feels kind of stupid on his part, because he literally quotes something from the Bible, which when the brother looks up, like the word Perceptor is like tied to it, and he just kind of like figures out from that. And that's the thing. That thing we hate in supernatural movies where they do the Google search scene where they got the research and we get all the zoom ins to all the little articles and things. We get that in this movie because he's looking up this passage and it like zooms into the word preceptor and you're like, oh no. So
it's beyond stupid.
it's nuts. What gets me as well is the younger brother arrives at the scene. He comes in and the older brother is like pointing his gun at him and he holds him at gunpoint and they talk for a little bit and then like he's called his wife clearly off camera, so the wife shows up as well and he's like, get in here you bitch, and he like, stand next to my brother, and then eventually the younger cop goes, hey, what happened to lady cop? And the killer goes, he just sort of nods and looks down at the corner, and younger brother looks round and she's just lying there unconscious, and I'm like, how did you not see her? It's like a rectangle of a room. It's not like she's round a corner, like she's just there. Like he somehow in this entire standoff up until this point did not see a woman just lying there, potentially dead. I mean, we find out later she's not dead yet, but she looks dead in the moment because he bashed her head in like repeatedly.
I guess I would say in his defense, he is a really bad cop.
Oh, the younger brother. Okay, that's what you mean. Yeah, that's what you mean.
I'd say they both are.
His observation skills are not amazing. Yes. Well, we can't really judge the older cop's like policing skills because technically he's faking it. She's the killer. So he's intentionally not getting the clues.
I'll still deduct him points for being a killer because that's not something a good cop should do.
Yes, I agree. Yes, fundamentally. Yes, in any capacity, but certainly not Saw and 7 levels of grotesque torture and statement.
Yeah.
So all this is going down, and older brother's big plan, the killer's big plan, is to whip out a lament configuration that he got from earlier, and he makes his brother and wife open it. And he's mad at the wife because she was already cheating on him as soon as he left to go in the military. And they open the box, and sure enough, Pinhead just comes casually sauntering in the door like it's nothing. Just like, la-di-da. Oh, it's this Pinhead time, ladies. And he comes up to the older brother, and the older brother's like, I want to make a trade. Their life for mine. Which, by the way, that was also a big plot point in the last movie.
Yeah.
Was the idea of trading someone for their life. And Pinhead's like, hey, like, they opened the box. It's kind of, that they'll be dealt with for doing that. That's whatever. But your beef isn't really with me. It's with, it's the main man. It basically implying Satan, like, and that's who the demon lawyer works for. Is like, it's not really me that's your beef's with. So I can't really do anything about that. And the woman, the wife gets ripped apart. We get the classic chains come out, ripped apart side to side, all completely torn apart. The younger brother gets killed as well. How does he die again? Did
he just get like a chain through his chest or something?
Yeah, he gets stabbed with like a pole or a chain. Yeah. From behind. It's kind of weird. Uneventful. Obviously, the wife's death's, because it's kind of that Hellraiser death where her skin's ripped apart from either side, it's all right for what it is.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. Like I liked when the skin starts to rip off and you kind of see like all the muscle and meat underneath it kind of like slide forward. I was like, it's not bad.
Joe, the ending here, what we're about to get to, reminded me of a little bit. It's not the exact same, and I'm not saying it's on the same level per se, but it reminded me a little bit of the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, where it was revealed that the family's working for the government. Like all that
I can see that
crazy shit. So in walks a woman in a white suit who very quickly, I think you could probably guess, oh wait, this is an angel. This is someone who works for God. This is this is the opposite of what Pinhead and this demon lawyer are. This is someone who works for the big man in the other direction. And she comes in and says, no, you're not taking him to hell. And he's like, wait, what? He's a serial killer. Why aren't we taking him to hell? And she's like, because we've decided that we want him on Earth doing what he does. And Pinhead basically cynically deduces that God wants people to fear something like him so that it'll turn them to religion and turn them back to God. So it's this kind of evil thing God's doing to actually like gain more followers. And it all ends kind of in this laughable way, because basically they send him back to Earth and immediately Lady Cop shoots him and kills him. Yeah. Which was admittedly a little funny. I'm not going to lie. I did get a little chuckle out of that. And it cuts back to Pinhead and this angel, and she's like, "You knew that would happen, Pinhead, you bastard." And he's like, "What can I do? I'm just Pinhead. I don't make the rules."
Yeah, the thing's kind of weird is like, it feels like if they wanted to have this kind of purpose or whatever for the angels, like, I don't know, I feel like you should have a better type of serial killer, because, you know, if the serial killer's MO is like he's killing people that are, you know, sinning or whatever, I don't know, like I feel like that just like, you know, would make people more be like, oh, screw that guy, you know, versus like, wow, maybe he has a point, maybe we should stop, like we should be better people or whatever.
I think the logic behind it is that he's killing people who have sinned, so that's making other people not want to sin, because then they won't be potential victims.
I don't know, it just feels so sweaty to me. Like
sweaty.
Yeah. Just like, you know, it's like trying too hard, it's, you know, overworking itself, it's reaching for something that, I don't know, it's very stupid to me.
There's something in the concept of this that I don't necessarily hate. Obviously I don't think it's, you know, done well here, but I also don't think it belongs in a Hellraiser movie, because I think this is really muddying up the lore of what Pinhead and the Cenobites are, because even though they came from a hell dimension in the first movie, and they're there to like take you to another dimension where you're, you know, the pleasures are nothing you've ever experienced before, I feel like putting them in a very direct, no, this is heaven and hell with a god and Satan, and Pinhead's like an enforcer helping out, like take in evil people for hell, and like gods get angels walking around, kind of like Cenobites who are influencing things too. It just feels like it's putting it too much, you know, pardon the expression, it's putting it into too much of like a typical box that feels like it's just robbing Hellraiser and Pinhead of all the mystique and charm that it has.
Yeah, no, I absolutely hate this. I was trying to think of, like, if I could remember, like, which movie, you know, where they very, you know, explicitly started saying that, like, okay, this is hell. Because, yeah, like, the first movie, I don't know if they ever actually say hell, but, you know, it always did seem more like, yeah, they're, like, these cosmic, like, demons from another dimension or something, and you know, they even say like, you know, in the first movie they have that line or whatever where, you know, they're asking like, you know, who are you or what are you, whatever, and they're like, you know, like, oh, angels to some, demons to others, you know, like, I like that, you know, it's very ambiguous, and it's not like, you know, they're just not very the stereotypical Christian, you know, kind of idea of demon and hell. Like, that to me just really goes against yeah, like one of the things that was really cool and interesting and unique about the first one, like just making them like more demons is very boring.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like I say, I think there's some conceptual things here about the politicking of God and Satan and how they're managing things on Earth is mildly interesting, but it doesn't belong in a Hellraiser movie. And you know, and I agree.
More
like I have no idea if they said the word hell in the first Hellraiser. I'm 50-50. Honestly, it could be either one. But even if they did, just because they say hell doesn't mean literally the hell of the Bible, the hell of, you know, God versus Satan kind of thing.
Yeah, or if it's like, you know, it might be okay if it is like the victim saying it's hell because, you know, they don't know what's happening to them. And the only concept they have is like, oh, this must be hell. You know, whereas like once you actually have like Pinhead being like, oh, did I piss off God? You know, like, or something like that. Like, it's like,
and not even just that. We have this like this demon lawyer type dude who's like an administrator. He sits at a desk and asks questions. Like, call me crazy, but that's kind of robbing the Cenobites. I know he's not technically a Cenobite, but even just putting the Cenobites in the same world as him robs the Cenobites of like, they have like diplomacy and like, I mean, obviously it's all skewed to being really evil and stuff, but they still have some form of bureaucracy, which just feels wrong. Like, no.
like those ideas and that concept does intrigue me, but it's not what I want in a Hellraiser movie.
Sure,
essentially what it comes down to.
It doesn't belong with the Cenobites. There's probably another, standalone thing you could do with this that is interesting.
A lot of this actually felt very like Constantine to me, which is relevant now because we're getting a sequel. But
Keanu returns apparently,
which is strange to me, but I'll take it. But yeah, I mean, it feels like a lot more like something you would see out of that. Like even just like the entrance of the angel or whatever, like the lady in the white dress just kind of reminded me of like at the end of like Constantine. When I think like when Tilda Swinton or whatever like comes down as an angel, like I don't know, it's I guess maybe I'll give it the tiniest of compliments that there's some interesting ideas and stuff here, but it just doesn't work.
There's something to talk about, which is more than some of the last movies.
Sure, yeah.
So so they send the killer back to Earth, and immediately Lady Cop shoots him and kills him, which is kind of like darkly funny. And we come back to Pinhead, and the angel's moaning that you knew that would happen. And Pinhead's like, you're the one who tempted them out of the Garden of Eden, so if we get punished from her, like it'll be a long time. So you know what? I'm just going to kill this angel. And he puts he puts the chains on her to hold her. But the one thing he does differently, and I'm surprised Pinhead's never done this in a movie before, he starts taking out his own pins and like putting them in her forehead. So then by the time we finally see her, she's got like a dozen pins just like scattered over her forehead.
It's kind of cool.
But then the ending actually gets crazier, where this obviously gets back to like God or the higher ups, and it gets back to everyone else. And the punishment for Pinhead and the demon lawyer and the Cenobites is that they have to become human again. So the end of the movie is that they scream and there's like a bit of an effect, and then we're just in the streets of the city, and we basically find in an alleyway, the camera finds a homeless guy who's got some Pinhead shaped scars. This bald guy, obviously it's the actor who played Pinhead in this movie, and he just starts, he's just ranting about stuff, ranting about biblical stuff, and the camera goes up and it fades to black. It gets like this does kind of end the franchise. They've just turned Pinhead into a human.
True, yeah.
Not that I would have been surprised if they did an 11th movie and just ignored this, because this franchise has ignored lots of things from previous movies. It's been very inconsistent. Obviously we're getting a proper reboot, but this is, I mean, it was an ending. I'll give it that.
It feels like extremely rushed. Like
sure. This movie does not feel like it's building up to the goodbye of Pinhead.
Yeah.
Not at all.
What is kind of funny though is it does some of these like ideas and storylines I feel like they've actually done in some of like the Hellraiser comics, and even Clive Barker wrote a book called I think it's called like The Scarlet Gospel or something, where he has like one of like the main characters from his novels, I think it's like Henry Damore or something. I think he's one of the characters in one of his movies, like maybe Lord of Illusions or something. But it's basically like a John Constantine character that Clive Barker has throughout some of his books. Actually goes up and like fights Pinhead in hell. So it's kind of interesting. Like I read that book like when it first came out, and actually, unfortunately, I didn't think it was that good. And I love Clive Barker, but it kind of felt like the most cash grabbiest thing that he's ever done, because even he, I think, has said before, like, I don't know if he's a big fan of Pinhead, but it clearly wasn't supposed to be, someone that was a very important or a big character or whatever. So he's just clearly like kind of, writing a book about him to sell stuff. But the comics I actually do enjoy quite a bit. And there's definitely, like, I remember there's been storylines where like Pinhead actually does, become a human again. And if I remember correctly in the comics, I think like he becomes human, and then Kirsty becomes like a Cenobite, and then
of course that's what happens.
And then I think like eventually like so like they have to like some other people, like the human Pinhead. I forget what his human name is, but I think he ends up having to like team up with like people to try to take her down or something like that. It's been a while since I read them. I actually thought they were pretty good.
Was this the old comics from the early 90s, or was this like the 2000s like Boom stuff or whatever it is?
Yeah, the Boom stuff from 2000s, which I think those do have Clive Barker's name on it. I think he might get like a story by credit in the comics, but I don't. That's one of those hard things. So that's like, I mean, did he really have much input, or was he just kind of like, yeah, sure, put my name on it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I never read any of the comics. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't even know they were comics. They're pretty under the radar, I would say, as far as
they're not
tie-in comics go.
So like the original like 80s 90s comics, I actually think are really good, and those are neat because they're like more anthology type ones, which probably works better, you know, because then you'll just have like random people like interacting with box and stuff. And like I remember there's one like about a boxer, and then I think like the end of the comic was like you see him like fighting in a ring, and then like kind of like pulls out, and like the ring is the box. And I remember Mike Mignola like drew a short story, and I feel like Neil Gaiman and actually even the Wachowskis, I think, wrote some of the stories. So those early comics I actually think are really good. And then the Boom series, it was definitely more, you know, like, all right, let's actually do like an extended look at the mythology and kind of bring back characters and stuff. But I thought it did it fairly well. So I wouldn't say it's like must read, but
it's better than all the sequels we've had since like
100%. Yeah. It's like I think it's kind of what you would expect if you're like you know what I think a good comparison would be maybe is like to the Buffy comics, where like you know, I think those are pretty entertaining, but it's not like they're not must reads, and they're not as good as the show, you know, by any stretch. But like when you read them, they're like, yeah, this isn't bad.
Yeah. I do think the first batch of Angel comics were probably must read. Angel After the Fall was really, really good. But
so I don't think I ever read those. Were those the ones by Peter David?
I don't think so.
Okay, I know he wrote Angel for a while, but yeah, it might have not been.
Yeah, no, because the series kept going afterwards and ongoing, and it was fine. But like the first like 16, 17 issues was Angel After the Fall, and it was kind of like here's what happened right after the show ended, because it ended in a sort of big cliffhanger.
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
It was really good stuff.
Cool.
But anyway,
I have to track those down.
You know, that was when it was IDW, just for the record, just if you're looking for them. Although I'm sure Dark Horse owns them again now, but like I don't know what the release.
Well, now they have like the rebooted ones at Boom.
Or sorry, Boom owns them now, not Dark Horse. Sorry, yeah, I mixed it up.
But Dark Horse did have them for a while, so
yes,
it's that's those comics are good. I mean, I haven't read all of them, but it is like another comics thing where. Yeah, it isn't the easiest to get into. Like there's like seems like several continuities and reboots and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just get back to Hellraiser Judgment. We should probably rate the movie and you know say our final piece on it. What are you going to rate Hellraiser Judgment?
I'll give it a 3.5. I don't remember what I gave like the last couple of movies. I'm assuming those were in the 2s because. They're just pretty wretched. So the nicest thing I can say about this one is that it's seems more competent than those ones, and slightly more like an actual movie, and hey, it has a few interesting ideas, if unfortunately not really executed that well, but I mean, it's still committing the sins of these later sequels where it just at this point feels so far away from what made the first one so good and interesting and unique. And I don't know why all of these I mean, I don't know if we go back and look at all the sequels, if like there's not many of them are about cops, but it feels like everyone is about a cop for some reason. And starting with the very bad fifth one, which some people try to say is good, but I don't know what's wrong with them.
No, it's trash. Fifth one's trash.
Yeah, it's so bad. And and I feel like I wonder if that one got like a little bit of success, and that like they've tried to base a lot of like later sequels on that, because this feels very much like in the vein of that movie, versus like trying to be like, the first or second movie or something. But yeah, I mean, I hate it. I don't, I'm just repeating myself, but like, yeah, there's nothing about it that's really good. Like, I don't really like the way it looks. I don't like the characters, the performances aren't great. Like even stuff like the sound and stuff, like, I didn't really think was particular. Like I was, I had headphones in, like listening to this, and I don't know, some of the just like, I don't know, just like random like noises and stuff. I do not think we're good. But yeah, no, I don't know. I'm just rambling. It's been a very long day and a long weekend for me. So I apologize, but no, this sucks. I don't know what else you want me to say about it.
Oh, it's absolute garbage. I'm going to give it.
Oh wait, was I supposed to throw up on you to?
No.
I apologize.
I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. It at least has a couple of wild ideas, and I don't actually think they suit Hellraiser, but at the very least, it gave me something memorable to talk about and say, "Hey, they did this crazy thing in it," as opposed to any of the recent ones. The only one that I guess kind of fits under the same banner would be the 8th one, which was the one with all the internet and video game stuff, because that also had some crazy stupid ideas in it as well.
Sure, yeah, but even that one, like when you talk about that one, in theory it sounds like it should be more entertaining than it is. Like watching it, I still felt like was a chore, but yeah, like that one you kind of want it to be more fun, but
yeah. So 3 out of 10 from me. Not very good. Laughably bad, in fact, in a lot of places, but not the worst the franchise has done. And that's the bar is incredibly low for that statement, but that's where we are with it. So we have finally wrapped up the 10 Hellraiser movies. Obviously, we got the new one coming, which is actually a proper.
We should get like a little achievement unlocked or something.
We should. I feel like I should be. I feel like Dimension or someone owes me money for sitting through all this shit. But we do have the new one coming out next month, and it, for all intents and purposes, it's a big, high profile, proper new release. Obviously we've got a female Hellraiser, or a female Pinhead, sorry, I should say, and it feels like they're actually trying to make it an actual movie that people are going to see again. That's the impression I get. Will it be good? Because not every movie that's mainstream is good, far from it, in fact. But at least that, I mean, it trying to be mainstream is more than this franchise has done since the start of the 90s. So
yeah,
that's worth something.
I mean, there's people with actual talent involved. It feels like something that people are putting thought into versus something that's just a very blatant cash grab, or
I mean, we joke about
gotta make something to hold on to the license.
Yeah, we joke about them doing the title reveal, but at least like none of these previous movies had marketing. Like they didn't have any type of hype at all. This at least has people, at the very least, we're getting hype things from Hulu or is it Hulu? I think it's Hulu.
It's Hulu, yeah.
Yeah. We're getting little hype things from them. They're tweeting about it. There's at least trying some attempt to build some idea that, hey, this can be one of the big horror franchises, because it isn't really a big horror franchise. It's got a big original film, and then it very quickly goes down into just absolute trash. And it's not like other franchises where there's at least a reasonable consistency after a certain point for a while.
Yeah,
this doesn't have that. So yeah, I hope it's good. It could very easily be the second best movie in the franchise without even breaking that much of a sweat. I know some Hellworld fans are probably going to be mad at me for saying that. I did respect that movie more when we watched it for the show, but I still think it's got problems. So
yeah, you're talking about the third one?
No, the second one, Hellworld.
Oh wait, no, that's
third one's Hell on Earth.
Yeah. I don't think the second one is called Hell World. It can't be.
Oh, sorry, Hellbound. It's Hellbound. You're right. You're
Hellbound.
right.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that's
Hellworld's
better.
Hellworld's like 6 or 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry. I meant Hellbound. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I like Hellbound, but yeah, it's definitely not. It's a step down from the first one for sure.
Yeah. So the net is wide open. In fact, they could have it be better than everything but the first one, and it not even be saying that much, because the bar is. I mean, the bar is not as low, but if you count the second one and the third one, I would say, but even then, it's not that high still. So, here's hoping. Here's hoping for a good movie next month. I'm looking forward to checking it out and see what they do with it. See how they sort of reestablish and reintroduce the concept to people. If it's about a disgruntled cop who's got a dark side, I am going to be livid.
Yes, I'll be very upset. I'm, just judging by the director, I believe it's David Bruckner, I think.
That sounds right, yeah.
I mean, just judging by his other stuff, I think at the very least, we can expect that this is going to be a pretty, good-looking film. Like, Ritual and Night House, I both thought, looked really great.
Yeah.
And I really loved Ritual. We haven't reviewed Night House yet, so I won't give my thoughts on it too much, but I think just going off both of those, I think at the very least we're sure to get something that will have like a clear direction that will actually look like cinematic and have atmosphere, which it's kind of the big thing I'm hoping for. Like, I don't want Pinhead killing 50 people a minute, like.
I want to have that desaturated kind of like look to it, because we're trying to look like a movie, but we're, that alone will not make it like a movie. So, we're
not like making a movie in like 2022 that's trying to look like a movie from like 2003.
Yeah. So. Here's hoping the new one's good, but that'll pretty much wrap up our discussion here of Hellraiser Judgment. So, of course, let us know what you think of the movie and the franchise as a whole at this point, because we're now done. We're finished, barring the new one, of course, but it's not out yet, so we're done for now. So let us know what you think of the movie.
I'd say let's rank them, but honestly, I probably don't even think I can remember like half the sequels.
I mean, it's like the first one, I kind of like 3 more than 2 because I'm a weirdo.
I mean, it literally might just be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know. Like, I mean, like the later ones will probably mix around a bit, but
I don't know if I remember them well enough to do it completely accurately, but it's probably for me 1, 3, 2, 4, and then maybe this one, or maybe 8 first, and then this one. And then you've got 5, 6, 7, and 11, which are just probably in that order. They're probably just in that order at the bottom. We haven't seen
yet, but
oh, sorry, 9. I meant 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5, 6, 7, and 9 are just kind of in that order at the bottom.
Yeah.
Probably.
That's about right.
Because for a while it did feel like they were just getting worse each time.
Yeah.
It really did. But there you go. That is that. You can, of course, let us know what you thought of the movie and the franchise in the comments. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. All those things help. You can also support us financially by hitting the super thanks button. Or, of course, get over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and support us for as little as $1 per month and getting some bonuses for your trouble, including 2 extra things per month. At the $3 tier, you get the bonus episode every month, which is I was just reviewing a dumb movie like we do on a regular episode. They're usually dumb B movies, not always, but usually. And then the other bonus you get, the $5 tier, is Even More Streams, which is a show where me and Tim just sit down and talk about all the different horror movies we've been watching over the month. Not for the show, and just sort of have casual little chats about them. And that's sometimes how we catch up on some other things that we don't have time to review in the show, but also just random other old movies and stuff that we happen to check out and talk about. Plus, Tim makes me do a horror quiz usually at the start of that, so... it's a good fun time. It's a hit with all the patrons, so if you want to check it out,
is it?
Oh yeah, they love it. They love Even More Streams. So
well,
check it out.
No one ever tells me they love it, so
so get that and bonuses for the other shows we do over at Patreon. But any and all support is obviously very welcome, and we appreciate all of it. Thank you once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. keep watching scary movies. We will see you next time.